We are at a time in history where the creation of information is happening faster and it's proliferating more than ever before. You can see in events that are happening right now, like our elections, like the coronavirus pandemic, you can see how important information is and what sort of effect misinformation can have on a society as a whole. I think one of the interesting things I've noticed with students is that they are very aware of how biased information sources can be, to the point where they almost don't trust anything. And so I feel like a big part of my job these days is to tell them how reputable news agencies work, and introduce them to that kind of flow of information through a reputable source. I use Access World News a lot with my students because I know that the sources contained within that database are all reputable news organizations. And I can explain to the students that not only has this information gone through the checks and balances of being published by a newspaper somewhere, but it's then gone through further checks and balances in being selected by NewsBank to be included in the database. One of the super unique things about Access World News is the fact that I can say, like, gosh, what are they saying about us in Europe? and show the kids, like, how is it being reported differently in Europe than here? And it's much harder to do that using any other databases or sources. I think that, the name says it all, Access World News. So to be able to look around the world and get different points of view is really important. I love that you can click on a map and choose the area of the whole world. Or in the United States, I've said to students on various point of view essays, like, wouldn't it be really interesting to see what they're saying about this in a small town versus a big city? Or wouldn't this be really interesting to see what they're saying about this in a red state versus a blue state? Or wouldn't it be really interesting to see what they're saying about this in a town that's like their industry versus a town where it's not? So I really love using that map search feature. I also like that there are the sort of hyper local sources that aren't available in some of the bigger, in some of the other news databases. You can't get for instance, the Sammamish Reporter, which is just like the tiny little local paper around here, but you can look up very local sources like that. I definitely recommend kids use Access World News over Google because I know that it's coming from reputable sources. If you just go to Google News, you don't know what this newspaper is or what its sort of point of view is. And while certainly each publication has its point of view, I know that the ones included in Access World News are balanced and high quality. One of my recent success stories was that one of the environmental science teachers came to me and said, I've got some time after the AP exam is over with my juniors to do some work. And I was thinking about looking at how environmental news is reported. And I jumped all over it. And I was like, I have all these ideas about how we can do this. And I said, maybe we could look at environmental news stories as they're published in different areas of the world or even different areas of the country. Or we could look at news stories that were published long ago and compare them to what they're saying about the same issues today. Find an environmental news story in a publication for a layperson and then trace it back to the original scientific research, like the journal articles and things like that. So it involved two pieces. One was finding a contemporary news article that's written for the general public, and then taking that information and tracing it back to a scholarly source.